gosh, that sounds dramatic. But then it's like the moment that you're writing the song, it is the only thing, that you can think about. I've like tried to write the song too early, and I'm like, I just got to put it away for later because it's like I haven't collected enough experience yet. Something in nature, and you see something and you take it and you're like, I want to put that in a song somewhere. I was trying to explain to myself what happened, everything that I did and everything that he did, and I felt like if I could make sense of it, then maybe it could feel better.
Do you feel like you're saying what your heart wanted to say with the song now?
Let me roll it back in my brain.
Welcome back. Today we have a songwriter from Tyrone, PA. If you've gotten the chance to hear her, you know the only thing that tops her beautiful voice is her heartfelt lyrics. If you haven't, I'm excited to introduce you to Alyssa Malvoisin. How are you today, Alyssa?
I'm so good. I'm really excited to be here.
Well, we're excited to have you here, for sure. Can you tell us a little bit about your view on songwriting and its place in your life?
I feel like songwriting is really important. It's definitely become more important to me over the last couple years, but I've always loved music. And even if you're not participating in songwriting, I mean, every time a song moves you, you're affected by songwriting. And so it was really cool to kind of learn how to do that yourself. And there's just so much cool stuff to learn, and it's been really cool.
Awesome. Can you tell us what song you chose for today and why?
I chose Sober. I think it's the first song that I was really proud of. Like I kind of wrote them, just to write them. But this one I felt really proud of. And it was also the one that, people keep asking for. Like if I'm at an open mic and I'm like, oh, what original should I play? And, people will be like Sober. And I'm like, all right. So it's definitely, I think, it's definitely like a benchmark in me songwriting. I think it's the first one that I've really felt, proud of and like to share with other people in like an open mic setting and doing shows and stuff like that.
As always on 80 Unplugged, we ask the artist to perform a song and then we break down the lyrics in an exclusive interview. Without further ado, here's an acoustic performance of Alyssa's song, Sober.
Never been a drinker, never had a smoke. Still I had a feeling long before we spoke, before I knew. I got vices too. First it was a slow burn when you put your lips on mine. Like the crowns kept in your pocket, though at first you tried to hide, still I knew. I liked the way they tasted on you. We both had our reasons to fight this feeling. Yours were very many, mine were a few, but you were too gonna do. Now you think such an addiction would come as a surprise, but I knew all that I was in for, and by the look in your eyes you knew all too well. You were careful for me as I felt. Said you needed was far too long to bear, because alone the feeling of a withdrawal is much too strong. So I put off a fix for us to get a fix for me. You blame yourself, but if you were thinking clearly, you'd see. But you were too drunk to remember, and I was too high on you. Tell me now that we're both sober, what are we gonna do? When it gets close to the end, before someone gets burned, you gotta toss the stuff away and crush it with your heel. But you're not like other men, you've had a lot of time to learn. You take me by the hand and ask me how I feel. I'm never getting you to quit, even so. Those things will kill you, you know. And it was like you knew I was coming, and it broke me when you smiled. You said, don't get so broken up over the likes of me, 'cause you still think you're the man you were a couple years ago, but you never introduced him to me. I would have asked you for a kiss goodbye, but the chance of relapse is much too high. You asked me not to use your name, but I guess you know who you are, and if it makes any difference, I hope I didn't leave a scar, and don't read too deep. I only write these things when I can't sleep. Though I always had a feeling, honey, now I finally see I was always gonna need you far more than you wanted me. The fault is mine. You see, it's never felt so good being blind. Still, I remember when we slow danced barefoot on the porch to some slow, soft 70s song you said you knew, but you were too drunk to remember, and I was too high on you. Tell me now that we're both sober, are you detoxing too? Tell me now that we're both sober, now that it's over, honey, now that we're both sober, what am I supposed to do?
Wow, that song is great. I really appreciated that performance.
Thank you so much.
I've heard that song live one other time when I saw you at the Dead Canary, and it's great every time.
Thank you so much.
I was actually really glad you chose that one for the podcast because, like, when I came and talked to you, I got to kind of hear a bunch of your original stuff, and I was like, man, all these are really deep. I have no idea which one she's going to choose, but I actually wanted to hear more of the backstory to this one, so I'm glad you chose it.
Thank you so much. I do like it. And some there's backstory, and some are just like, some are less interesting. So this was definitely a one to dig into.
Well, that's great. You picked an interesting one.
Well, I mean, they're all interesting in their own, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. So in many of your songs, and specifically in this song, you're telling a story. One way you were introduced to music was through listening to musicals. Can you speak about the influence that had on your writing? How do you feel the storytelling aspect in musical theater shaped your propensity for creating stories in your music?
I feel like that really started so young, and it's one of the things that you look back on later and realize that it was an influence. You know what I mean? I grew up like watching a lot of musicals. My dad was really involved in theater, and so whatever he was either acting in or running sound for, you know what I mean? I was there watching it, and some of the first songs that I wrote in middle school, I would write little stories, and I would write little songs for my characters, and that kind of took me into writing. And then when I picked up the guitar and I started going to open mics and stuff, and you see these incredible songwriters, you know what I mean, that you've never heard before, and they're just, just walking around. It's crazy. And so you get to talk to them and learn. And so I feel like it's all of those, and definitely the musical theater being something that you get to participate in. Because even if it's a song that you didn't write in musical theater, you have to break down, why am I feeling this way, as the character, and you have to express your feelings even though you didn't write the song in musical theater. You have to know what you're feeling and why, and I think that definitely carries into writing the song.
I love that. So when I was in college, I took a intro to art course, and through it, I learned about drawing gestural, which is you start a piece by like getting the gist of all the proportions. Well, I applied that to my songwriting. It changed the way I wrote songs, because instead of like trying to go line by line, I worked it as a piece instead of lines. I think that's really interesting that you said you kind of used your experience acting and in musical theater to help you write. Can you like talk about that a little more?
I think that was something, it was really an outlet for me. I started doing musical theater myself in high school, and then later on just acting. It's really, when you're deciding what lines to punctuate and how, what lines, does your character become more emotional on, and you feel like you always have to pick a climax for your song. What is the most energy, what is the quietest part, and the opposite. And I feel like when you're writing a song, you want the same things, and then when you're performing your own song, you also think about it in a similar way. So I also think I went from singing other people's songs as an outlet to having my own experiences and writing my own songs based off of that. And in a way, you still experience them again, when you're singing them. Sometimes it takes you just right back, and sometimes that can be good. Sometimes that can be just, it's always interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I have that where like some songs make me cry, and I'm like, I haven't been there, and like, I haven't had that emotion in like 10 years or something like that. And I'm like, why am I crying about this? But it's because it's so powerful, Well, I think that we should start the lyric breakdown. So I am going to read out your lyrics, and then I'll just give you time to explain like what you're thinking and why you wrote them and stuff like that. Okay, this is verse 1. Never been a drinker, never had a smoke. Still I had a feeling long before we spoke. Before I knew, I've got vices too. First, it was a slow burn when you put your lips on mine, like the crowns kept in your pocket, though at first you tried to hide. Still I knew. I liked the way they tasted on you. We both had our reasons to fight this feeling. Yours were many, mine were few.
Whew. I've never heard them like right back to me. It's really interesting. I guess the first one, like the first little chunk is like, never been a drinker, never had a smoke. Still I had a feeling long before we spoke, before I knew. Like that part I feel like is kind of like a setup for the song. It's kind of like a thesis, I guess. Like I feel like that one part, especially the I've got vices too part, is kind of like what the whole song is about. So I feel like that first chunk is kind of like, telling me what the song is about. And then the second chunk is like, okay, well, let's go back and start at the beginning and like tell the whole story. And the second chunk is kind of like one of those guideposts for me writing the song, or like a guiding star, because this is one of the ideas that I had like when I started writing it was I feel like sometimes like you just see things in life. It's if somebody says something or something in nature and you see something and you take it and you're like, I want to put that in a song somewhere. And you're like, you might have no idea, where it's going to go, but you kind of take it and you put it away for later. And that was one of the ones before I even knew that I was going to write a song or before I even knew what it was about. I saw his cigarettes, they were called Crowns. And he slipped them in his pocket, and and that was one of the things where I saw, and I kind of took that in and put it in my back pocket. I was like, that would sound cool, in a song or something. And then I kind of tried to use it to kind of describe like the first, the way feelings grow when you're getting to know somebody, and comparing that to like the burn of a cigarette. But that was one of the things that, like, I feel like you have enough of those little things and you put them in a little basket for your song. And then when your basket's full of little bits and bobs that you've collected, then you can start writing your song. Sometimes I've like tried to write the song too early and I'm like, I just got to put it away for later because it's like I haven't collected enough experience yet. But I feel like that's the first little chunk.
I love that you described it as a thesis.
Maybe that's a little scientific.
No, because like honestly, I felt like that before. Like sometimes I try to. I'm like, here's what we're talking about. Like in the first verse, I feel like I've done that before. Like, I'm going to talk about this, and then you talk about it. Like. But I when I was like really reflecting on this, because I try to like really think about the lyrics of other people's songs, I was like, this sets the scene. Like this is like. It's almost like the epilogue. Or I don't know what an epilogue is. The part where it's like, it's setting the scene. I'm sorry.
The prologue?
Prologue. Yeah, like you're putting the story in motion. And I think it's a beautiful way to start a song.
Thank you.
I think we should get right into the next part because it ties so perfectly in with this part, obviously, because it's part of the song. But I'll go ahead and read it. I called this the chorus. Would you call this the chorus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like sometimes song structure is so fluid. I'm like, I'm not sure if the writer would call something the chorus. Anyway, so I'm going to read the chorus. But you were too drunk to remember, and I was too high on you. Tell me now that we're both sober, what are we gonna do?
That one is that was another thing, is like when I was writing this song, I knew that I could use that chorus to reference different parts in the story. And so like this first part in the story is, we both had our reasons to fight this feeling. Yours were very many, mine were few. And so it kind of means something a tiny bit different, based on like what the chorus is placed next to in every verse. And I feel like this one is kind of about you kind of overlook things, when you're first starting a relationship and you're excited to be with that person, and there are certain things that get overlooked. And then you were too drunk to remember and I was too high on you is kind of like, again, back and forth. I always introduce this song at my gigs and I'm like, it's called Sober. I wrote it when I was 20 and I'd only ever had one sip of wine in my tiny little life. And now I'm 21 and I honestly, don't really drink that much or anything. But I always say it's not really about alcohol. And so it's kind of like the reference to, I feel like this song is about like dealing with feelings that you have for somebody else and how they could be so strong. And so the only thing that I could think to compare them to was like, kind of like the way that I've heard people describe, well, it's hard to quit smoking or it's hard to quit drinking. And it's like, it's hard to cope with it. And then after it's gone, it's hard to cope without it. And I feel like that's kind of what the chorus means.
I think that's really interesting that you're painting this chorus in different contexts, and I'm excited to hear how they're painted differently throughout it. In a prior conversation, you told me this line was the catalyst for the song. Throughout the whole piece, you use this analogy of being high on a relationship. Why did you choose to tell the story from this perspective? I know you still kind of answered it, but I'd still love to hear you answer the question.
Well, there was it's kind of based off of like the last verse is like there was we slow dance barefoot on your porch and to some slow song 70s song you said you knew but you were too drunk to remember and I was too high on you. Like that's all of the choruses came from there because I slow danced with him and I didn't know what the song was called, but I wanted to remember what the first song we ever slow danced to was called. And so I was like, hey, do you remember this like for later so I can like know what it is? And he was like, yeah, I remember. And so it was the next morning and I texted him, I was like, hey, do you remember what that song was? And he was like, no. He's like, shoot, I don't remember. And I was like, oh. And he said, well, do you remember any words? And I was like, shoot, I don't. And I was like, well, he was tipsy. He had a couple. He has an excuse. What's my excuse? So that's where, you were too drunk to remember and I was too high on you came from. And then, of course, now that we're both sober, now that that's kind of gone, what do I do? Like, how do I live without that?
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think you're, although this is a story unique to you, you're capturing what a lot of people feel. Like getting over a relationship is like getting over an addiction, for sure. I'm going to get into verse 2. We'll just keep moving along here. Now you'd think such an addiction would come as a surprise, but I knew all that I was in for, and by the look in your eyes, you knew all too well. You were careful for me as I fell. You gave me all that I could handle, all that you could spare. But the time you said you needed was far too long to bear. Because alone, the feeling of withdrawal is much too strong. So I put off a fix for us to get a fix for me. You blame yourself, but if you were thinking clearly, you'd see.
That one is kind of about how part of, the learning to cope with, being with somebody is you wonder so badly if they feel the same way as you do. So it's like every time that you're apart, you wonder, do they miss me as much as I miss them? And I think that's like the time you said you needed was far too long to bear because alone, it's like the feeling of withdrawal. And it's like, it hurts to be away from somebody, but it also hurts to think that they don't really mind being away from you. And just as soon as you adjust to that, you have to kind of adjust. I wrote the song standing on my porch. I was so heartbroken. I was standing on my porch and I was just wondering, like, you go from wondering if when you're apart, if they miss you as much as you miss them, and then you're broken up and you're still wondering the same thing. And you're like, I thought it was supposed to be better, but I'm still wondering if, they're missing me as much as I miss them. And it's really hard, especially like this is like my first time kind of dealing with all of that. And and then you blame yourself, but if you're thinking clearly, you'd see. It's another way to lead into the chorus, and I feel like it kind of sets up the next. I guess I would call them. Is it like the B section or something? Like the next chunk of lyrics. It kind of sets up that.
I think I did a little bit of a disservice the way I split up your song because I usually take the repeating sections and only do them once. Mm-hmm. But I would like to read the last part when you said I give the chorus different context. I love that you wrote that in now that I'm looking at that. So I'm going to go ahead and read the lead up to the chorus and the chorus.
Okay.
And then I go ahead and talk about it some more. But yeah, I think I should have kept the chorus in with the verses. So I put off a fix for us to get a fix for me. You blame yourself, but if you were thinking clearly, you'd see. You were too drunk to remember, and I was too high on you. Tell me now that we're both sober, what are we going to do?
That part is kind of about, the first part was kind of about stuff, how nothing else really seems to matter when you're starting a relationship. You're just so, excited and close to the other person. And then this part, I put off a fix for us to get a fix for me is maybe there were things that I should have said, like I could have communicated better, but I was so afraid that it would lead to the end of it that I just put it off because I loved, being a part of the relationship so much, and I loved seeing that other person so much that I maybe didn't say when things were bothering me or didn't say when there were things that I needed. And so I feel like that's really what that means, is I was too high on, the other person to fix the relationship, as opposed to just like doing what felt good for me right now.
That is so deep. That is one of the reasons I wanted to do this podcast was because I feel like people take songwriting for granted. And they just hear a song, they go verse, chorus, whatever. And they don't really think about the heart that the songwriter poured into it. And like, I don't know, just the more you talk about the song, the deeper it gets. I just think, like, actually, Jared and I were talking about this yesterday because we were kind of discussing the lyrics and going over some of the questions I had. And I was like, oh, there's this parallel in the song between his substances and her infatuation. And he was like, I didn't pick up on that at all. I thought they were both infatuated. And the whole thing was a metaphor for it. And I'm like, that's actually beautiful, because like it's actually kind of beautiful that people can take it in different ways, but it's also like so interesting to hear the person that wrote the song like actually dig into it.
That's so cool to hear. That's really cool. I really like that, because like it's you could ask somebody what it's about, but it's said 5 times. It's like the way that you interpret it. Oh, that's so cool. That's definitely like, that makes me think of the I gave you me all that I could handle, all that you could spare, and it's like, for me it was everything, but for you it was what you had, what you could spare, what you could just give. Yeah. But that's really cool.
What I think is so interesting hearing you talk about the lyrics is that every little tidbit feels straight from your life. Like you didn't maybe the word glorify, or like like as songwriters, I think this is our superpower a little bit. We can change so that we're smelling like a rose every time, or like change if we're like, well, this emotion, if taken to the extreme, is this, so I'm going to write the extreme. But you're just straightforward writing exactly all of this tangled web that you're feeling. I think that's beautiful. I think like in some of the later verses, which I should hold my horses, but I thought it was beautiful that you never wrote this person as a bad person. You always like, you kept, well, I'll just read the lyric. I'm gonna cart before the horse. This is my podcast. You said something about, you said you thought he was a better man than he thought he was. I thought that was so like beautiful and so honest, because you could just be like, I'm going to be really drastic. You could be like, you're drunk all the time, I hate you. Like, that could be the song. But that wasn't the song. You wrote it so, like, and I was just being drastic and funny. Like, I wasn't trying to actually say he was drunk all the time. You wrote it so deeply, and, like, as many times as I've listened to the song, because I've tried to listen to a bunch, it, like, I peel back another layer where I'm like, this had to have happened for it to be so like deep and real. But yeah, just a beautiful song. Beautiful.
Thank you so much. That definitely comes from just like, I was so shocked by first having this and then it's gone. I felt like if I got everything out, just if I wrote everything, then I would feel better. So I would write it and I would be like, oh, I think I'm done. And then be like, well, I still feel this and I didn't write that. And and it's hard to look back now because I was preparing for today, and I was like, oh my gosh, like I was like, if somebody listens to this, they're gonna think that he was drunk all the time and stuff. Like he wasn't, like, but it's just like it was a comparison I felt like that I could make. But I just felt like I was trying to explain to myself what happened, everything that I did and everything that he did, and I felt like if I could make sense of it, then maybe it could feel better. And so I felt like there were definitely times when I was writing it, because like I feel like as a writer, there's definitely lines come to you and they're easy and they're fast, but they don't sit right, and so you kind of have to work them over again. And it was hard to like go back and do things over again. And I felt like if I could just play it straight, I guess, like if I could explain to myself what happened, and maybe I could understand it.
So, are you happy with the way you package this song and sing it now? Do you feel like the story tells yourself the story? You know what I mean? Like, do you feel like you're saying what your heart wanted to say with the song now?
I think that I am. It's really hard because sometimes as songwriters we want to hold things off for like maybe we'll change this or that, and I definitely, when I was writing it, like changed the way a couple, like the order of a couple verses, but I think I am happy with it. I think that it definitely tells the story, or at least my part of it, and I hope that it does so honestly. And I never intend it to be like taken. Oh, I feel like it's serious, but I never intend it to be, taken super seriously, or I don't know. This is, how I felt when I was writing this song, and it was something that helped get me through. But I would really hate if, the people involved in it were like, digging through it and trying to think about everything. And it's like, I don't want it to, I don't know. It's weird when you write a song about not only people that are real, but people that can be around. And hey, I would hate for the song to hurt anybody.
In an earlier conversation, you told me you don't intend for your music to be a weapon. I was like, that's like poetic right there. Like, it's for you and it's for the listener, but it's not necessarily against another person. Man, I'm gonna go cart before the horse, because I'm so excited to talk about other parts of the song. But you kind of touched on this a little bit. You kind of talked about how you were, you kept feeling like you finished the song and you'd go back into it. Could you give us a little insight on your writing process, and like where does a song start? Where does it end?
That's a good question. I feel like, I passively, I go through life and I see like, oh, this looks pretty today. I'm going to put that in my back pocket for maybe a song or for something, or just to keep around. And I feel like a song starts either when some songs are like, okay, this is full. I can sit down and I'll write this. But a lot of songs, especially the ones that I'm most proud of, come from just needing to get something out. And it's like it's so much of everything. Like I think I was describing the song in one of our earlier conversations, and I was like, gosh, that sounds dramatic. But then it's like the moment that you're writing the song, it is the only thing that you can think about. Like, and sometimes a song would just, I've had songs that like you write, and then some songs I feel like they just hit you like a bus, and it's like you go to work and you're like, I keep thinking about that song. I keep thinking about the way the lyrics are going, and I'm driving on the car on the way home, and I'm trying to fix the lyrics, and then I'm like, all day I'm just like, I need to get to my guitar and I need to play it, because there's something that just needs to get out and needs to be explained. And I feel like that's part of the process. Another part of the process is like collecting those little things, and then you kind of have to see, how the story goes. I think I had some of the later verses first, and I had to flip them around because I was like, this progression of the story needs to go a certain way, and so it makes more sense, or it builds better if, this verse is here and that verse is there. And again, I thought that I was done like a couple times, because especially like there's kind of a pressure as a songwriter to keep your songs at like 3 minutes or whatever. That's like the standard. And I think this one is like, it's like 5.5. And so I was like, this is too long. I can't add anything else. But it's like, well, it's not done yet. And not only is it not done yet from a storytelling standpoint, but I don't feel like it's done yet. You know what I mean? I still feel, this. I need to put a verse about it, because maybe then it'll make sense to me, and I can finally stop thinking about it.
It's easy to hear your passion for music when you perform. You only started regularly performing about a year ago. What effect has that had on your writing?
I feel like it's been such a year. I really think that it kind of gives me feedback, I guess. Like I would just play in my room all the time, and I would write these songs, and I do all my writing in like the middle of the night, because that's when I would get home from work. And so I'm like wandering over to see if my parents are awake, and I'm like, can I play a new song for you? And they're like half awake, and they're like, yeah, let's hear it.
Come on in.
And so I would like play it for them, and I'd ask them, like, does this make sense in the story, or is it good, and all that. And my parents are the best. They'll give me feedback any time of day. Listen to me play it terrible hours of the night. But it's cool to see other people give you feedback on songs, and people tell you like, this one is my favorite. And especially like, it's definitely given me more confidence, because there are songs that I play at an open mic, and I'm like, I wrote that just for fun. Like, I don't take that one seriously. It's just a whatever song. And because it's like, I like them, but sometimes it's just, I don't think they're good, or they're so different than something else that I've written. And so I'll play it and be like, I'm not really sure about it. And one of my friends will be like, that's my favorite one that you've ever written. And I'm like, really? Well, then I guess I'll just keep writing, songs that are outside of my comfort zone, or songs that are different. And so I feel like it's really cool to see that. And it's also like people, like, especially with this song, I've had a couple of people like tell me that that it really impacted them. And I think that that's really cool, because something that you were going through, it's like, I can sing this song now and I'm fine. You know what I mean? But it's like, when I was writing this song, man, like it was a time for me. And so the fact that me getting through that might be able to help somebody else, or might be able to just, impact them in some way is crazy. Like I never thought that just me singing and playing in my room would have that impact at all.
Go mom and dad for being supportive. That's awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, great job, guys. You did they encourage you to perform?
Oh, yes, so much. My mom and my stepdad are at every single gig. They help me set up. I call my mom my momager, because
Beautiful.
Like I just love her so. She'll be like face to face. She's like, there's an open mic that you haven't tried yet, and I'm like, okay, cool. Or she's like, so and so does live music. I'm like, oh, really? That's so cool. Like she's just, they're so enthusiastic about this for me, and I absolutely love them for it. I mean, I'm always like, sorry, I'm dragging you to like Mother's Day, for example. I had 2 on Mother's Day, and I was like, Mom, I'm so sorry that I'm dragging you to Timbuktu on Mother's Day. She was like, this is great. I was like,
I'm sure it's just worth it to see you happy, and support you, because I didn't really meet your mom, but I saw her at the gig.
Yeah.
And they just looked happy. And I was like, that has to be her mom. Like, because I didn't know. It was just a bunch of people in a bar. But I was like, that has to be her mom, because that woman is thoroughly enjoying her music. It couldn't have been the first time she's heard this song.
Oh, no.
But yeah. And then it was. But yeah. Well, that's beautiful. It's always great to have a team. So let's get into the next section. And the next section goes... When it gets close to the end, before someone gets burned, you've got to toss the stub away and crush it with your heel. But you're not like other men. You've had a lot of time to learn. You take me by the hand and ask me how I feel. I'm never getting you to quit, even so. Those things will kill you, you know. It was like you knew what was coming. And it broke me when you smiled. You said, don't get so broken up over the likes of me. 'Cause you still think you're the man you were a couple years ago. But you never introduced him to me. I would have asked you for a kiss goodbye, but the chance of relapse is much too high.
Oh, that one. Let me roll it back in my brain. Yeah, that the first half of that is kind of like, obviously, comparing relationships to cigarettes, because there was a point when it was like, I feel like if you just keep it going too long without addressing things, before someone gets burned, it's like, yeah, it's the, a cigarette burning down to the end, but it's also like, just at a certain point, you kind of have to talk about certain things. You know what I mean? You can't just keep going the way that things have been, and yeah. And then the part where you got to toss the stuff away and crush it with your heel, but you're not like other men is kind of most people. I feel like humans have like a kind of self-preservation instinct. And so it's like, okay, this is done. It's not giving me anything anymore. So we're just going to be done. But I was lucky enough that, when things happened and things ended, I had somebody who was still really considerate and somebody that still cared about me as a person, even if we weren't in a relationship anymore. And so that's kind of what that next line is about. Is that even though, neither of us are getting anything from this in the way of a relationship, it was nice to have somebody that still, cares for you as just a fellow human.
The way you wrote this section and the next section, knowing that this relationship ended, do you think a piece of this you wrote for him to know?
I think that subconsciously I did, because it's like, I'm standing here on my porch writing this. I didn't think that I would be playing it anywhere really, but people seem to like it. And so it's like, I think that it was like, I wrote it. It's like when you write somebody, you ever done that like exercise where you write somebody a letter, but you never mail it? Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that, where it's like, I wrote it to him, but I never intended him to see it. So it's kind of like both. And I think that, that line was definitely one that I kind of surprised myself when I wrote the, you still think you're a man. And that second half, don't get so broken up over the likes of me, and you still think you're the man you were a couple years ago. That's, like you said earlier, when we're writing songs, we kind of get to, I don't want to say change things because I didn't, but it's like when I was...
Control the world.
Yes. But it's like when I wrote that, I was thinking like, you think of all the things that you wish you would have said. And you're like, oh, if I said this, would things be different? Or, should I have said this instead? And that's one of those lines for sure. And it's, that one was definitely kind of the root of that, because here I am, writing this song about being heartbroken. But even though I never intended him to see it, I guess I thought that it was important, hypothetically, for him to know that he is a good person. Even though I'm heartbroken, it's not because he's a bad person. It probably is because of the opposite. So,
like, not to be a nerd or anything, but that's what's powerful about songwriting is you there's so many different things to write about, either exact experiences, things you wish happened, things you wish would have played out. It's just beautiful, and I'm a big old nerd for songwriting, but I'm also I respect and appreciate how deep you're willing to go and talking about this. So thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No problem.
Because this plays so in tandem with the next line. I'm going to go ahead and read the next line as well. You asked me not to use your name, but I guess you know who you are. And if it makes any difference, I hope I didn't leave a scar. And don't read too deep. I only write these things when I can't sleep. Though I always had a feeling, honey, now I finally see. I was always gonna need you far more than you wanted me. The fault is mine. You see, it's never felt so good being blind. Still, I remember when we slow danced barefoot on your porch to some slow, soft 70s song you said you knew. But you were too drunk to remember, and I was too high on you. Tell me, now that we're both sober, and I'm going to stop there.
So I feel like the first chunk is definitely, again, like, I never intended, the song to hurt anybody. And but I feel like also in those lyrics in the first section, it's also, I feel like it's something that I just had to get out, I guess. And so it was just something to help me get through it. And then the second half is though I always had a feeling, kind of calls back to the first verse, is the wording of the first verse, and it's kind of a callback to that, as well as explaining that, I feel like it's like when we talked about the beginning thesis, maybe this is the closing thesis, and that last section about the slow dancing and everything, which is kind of the whole reason, or I guess where I got the idea from for the whole song, kind of rephrases the last chorus or set of choruses, I guess, as the first one is talking about, like, the things that we kind of brush past when we're excited about a new relationship, and the second one was talking about, like, this feeling of needing somebody, and how that affects you. And this last part is kind of just about how we forgot what the song was called. You were too drunk to remember, and I was too high on you. And it kind of just rephrases it in, I think it's kind of funny that the other two are kind of more dramatic, and this one is just a cute little anecdote. But I think that it kind of just sums up, instead of saying, I feel this way or I feel that way, it kind of gives you an anecdote to kind of draw on, kind of in a more vague sense than the other two. And then it just kind of leads into the last set of choruses,
which is a perfect segue. And I'll just read that last section. And that goes, but you were too drunk to remember, and I was too high on you. Tell me, now that we're both sober, are you detoxing too? Tell me, now that we're both sober, now that it's all over, honey, now that we're both sober, what am I supposed to do?
That one is kind of the are you detoxing too? I was like flipping back and forth between, the other endings that I've had on the end of verses, and it was one that I would swap out, and I was like, oh, I guess I'll just have to leave it out. But I was like, you know what? I just want to put it in. So I put it in at the end here, and it's really like we touched on earlier. Sometimes you have the feeling of, do they miss me as much as I miss them? Whether you're still in it or whether you're on the end of it. So I was just like, I feel like part of me writing this whole song was just standing on my porch wondering, first of all, why I was so torn up about everything. But second of all, like, am I the only one, that's as upset as he is as torn up about this as I am? And you can't really know. You just kind of have to wonder. And I think, that's the whole, are you detoxing too? Like, was it just me that was, I guess, in this, the metaphorical sense of the word, like addicted, or was it both of us? And I feel like that's kind of, I guess it's something that the whole song goes through. And then the end was, now that we're both sober, and, I guess talking about being high on another person and then saying that you're sober, you would assume then that it's over. But it's kind of just, another way to say, now that it's over. And then it kind of, the end is, instead of what are we gonna do, it's what am I supposed to do, which is kind of a more, I don't want to say a more selfish, like the other one was kind of going through, both of us are feeling this, but in the end it's kind of like, I'm writing this song because I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. I was standing on my porch and I was just so very confused, and I feel like this entire song is me trying to answer that, like what am I supposed to do? And I feel like you're kind of left directionless after, something like this. And I feel like this song definitely helped me get through it. Especially there are times when you're trying to get through something, you feel like you're just repeating it. You know what I mean? You feel like you'll be good for a little bit, and then it just goes back to, you feel like you're where you were, a day ago or a month ago. And I feel like, writing these songs gives me, at least I can look back and see when I was there. You know what I mean? And I basically wrote myself. I mean, they're art songs are, but it's kind of a, I guess I use the word thesis. It's kind of a paper about everything. So instead of going through it again, I kind of left myself a guide on if I ever get back to, the place that I was in when I wrote that, I can kind of help myself through it with what I wrote, I guess. And I have something to show for it.
I think that this is like the perfect ending. I think the first time I heard this song and you said, "Are you detoxing too?" It really stuck out to me. I was like, "Whoa, that's a change." But like the couple of times after I listened to that song, I thought that was the perfect metaphor for like coming off of a relationship. Like I have this song called Ghost, and it's about like the metaphor of feeling haunted by a person. So like, you haunt me like a ghost, that's the chorus. But that's exactly what that felt like detoxing, or being haunted, or like, like just like coming down, or like, it's just like this openness that you're like, I don't know. I don't know. But I also thought the way you changed it to what am I supposed to do is like, yeah, it's over. Like, I have to start worrying about just me. So I thought that was beautiful as well. Like this, it's such a subtle change. I think anyone could miss it, but it is like this, like you're realizing like it's for you, in like in a way. And I thought that was beautiful.
Thank you.
Well, we are coming to the end. And I like to ask this question to every songwriter that comes on the podcast. What is a piece of advice you could offer a fellow songwriter?
I would definitely say just talking to people. I mean, my whole game changed because when I started doing these, I just thought like, they're just paying me to sing. I should just sing. I didn't take breaks, first of all. Take breaks. But I didn't talk to anybody either. And then I went and I saw another good thing to do. Go see other musicians. But I went and saw other musicians and they talked with everybody, and it created a really cool environment where you're getting to know, the people in the area that you're playing at. And I would also say, like, go to open mics, because there are these great songwriters walking around. They're just walking down the street and you'd miss them otherwise. And it's just because there's some songwriters that, they play their own gigs and they put stuff out and you can see them that way. But there are some that just, they only do open mics or they don't play as much. And so just listening to them, but also talking to them. Like, there's some of my friends that I didn't think that I would have. I just, started doing open mics because, it's nice and you get to go out and you get to, do what you love. But meeting these other songwriters and getting to talk with them, and it's so different because they're not somebody on TV. They're not somebody that, you have no idea. You just assume, well, they're so-and-so, you know what I mean? Their life isn't like mine. But then you meet these real people and they're talking to you, and they, they get up for work and they do their laundry like everybody else. But it's like, they're these incredible songwriters that, it's also so weird because once you've done it, that's all you can talk about, and you try to talk about you try to talk to people that aren't super into music about it, and they only know like, you know, the super big names. It's like, no, but this one guy I know, Jimmy, he plays on Tuesdays, like he's the best songwriter that I know. And it's like, it's really cool. You'll meet a lot of friends, and you'll learn a lot of cool things about songwriting. So.
Yeah, that's like How I Met Jeremy Gross, who like I interviewed him last time. He was gracious enough to agree to be on one of the episodes. But the first time I heard one of his songs at open mic, I was like, who is this guy? And I like, poor dude, I was like, I want to talk about what you just played. Like, what was that lyric? Like, I thought you said X, Y, and Z, but did you say that? And he was like, no, it was actually this. And I was like, that makes way more sense. But yeah, definitely talking to other songwriters, being able to actually have an open dialogue is beautiful and inspiring. Have no fear. We are linking everything of Alyssa's down in the description. You won't have to look very hard. It'll be right down in the description, and also on our blog post. Head on over there to see everything that we post with Alyssa, and also check out our awesome blog article written by our awesome blog writer, Darian. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
This was great. This is a great interview, and truly, you are a very talented performer and songwriter, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for you. And I'm so excited that I get to watch it.
Thank you so much. Well, it takes one to know one. Your songs are good.
Well, there I look like a fool, but thank you so much. I can take a compliment. Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. Bye. See you guys. No, we can't end like that. We can't end that silly. All right. We'll just be like, we really enjoyed having you on here. And yeah. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Was that okay?
That's fun.
How much cheese we operating on?
How much cheese? A little silly.